Share the PowerPoint for the next. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. We will start again. We're going to continue. So welcome back to block 4, starting now with myself and the paper I wrote with my team members, Laura Ettel, Philipp Hoffmann, Alexander Böran, and Carla Zamora, revealing higher impact. Let's see here my presentation of media art archiving. Where is my presentation? Okay.
In the presentation. Is
to speak in this mic? Okay. So, welcome back. The field of media art holds a special position in art research and archiving due to its process-oriented, methodological, and disciplinary diversity. Considering the ongoing technological developments, particularly in the digital field, which are rapidly finding their way into the production of media art, as well as the constant transgression of boundaries between different areas of knowledge, archiving strategies and digital tools developed are not always best suited for digital art. The Archive of Digital Art deals since more than 2 decades with the documentation of media art, gathering hundreds of leading artists and scholars and over 50,000 documents. It serves as a foundation for innovative strategies and applications to reveal the high impact of media art in the context of scientific research developed within the projects LEFO and INDALI. So both are focused on creating new prospects for the exploration of perception and the value of collections. LEFO, Infrastructures for Digital Arts, Teaching and Research in Higher Education, extends the Archive of Digital Art as a platform for research and teaching of themes emerging from the field of media art, like climate, here Smits and Colby in 2020 and Colby 2011, or big topics like surveillance. As ADA also focuses on technical documentation, like interfaces developed by the artists, LEFO extends the platform of the collection and is turning ADA into a teaching tool integrating visualizations of the archive's content. Here you see Elke Reinhuber's keyword profile, for example. Visualizations of themes and tools and practices as a research methodology. Additionally, LEFO is developing with Linz and Angewandte Vienna augmented reality interfaces to the archive's collection, thus investigating new paradigms for presenting and navigating digital collections. Most ambitiously, it will also develop technical foundations for connecting disparate but thematically aligned online archives, like the ISEA or the Electronica archive, so that content is directly discoverable and comparable across overlapping collections, reinforcing the value of each platform in the context of research and teaching in media art. INDALI, the other project, tool development for image data literacy, researches and designs digital tools for image databases with the aim of both improving the user experience when using archive platforms and testing different approaches to digital image analysis. To reach these goals, INDALI addresses 2 core topics within its research. Firstly, the controlled vocabulary of the bridging thesaurus, which already encompasses keyword tags for the numerous artworks within ADA is used for extensive analysis to explore visualization concepts that contribute to media art research. And further, and here you see also another kind of visualization of the thesaurus. And furthermore, it will be explored if and how the bridging thesaurus could potentially enrich semantic web data on media art to further interconnection and integration among media archives. So how to use this bridging thesaurus to connect various archives. It has to deal with epistemological structures of archives, however, often developed organically over time and modeled around their respective needs. Consequently, basic alignment of vocabularies anchored in a mutually accepted standard, like the Getty Art and Architecture thesaurus, is a precondition of improving the accessibility of content across databases. The next one? No. Oops.
Sorry.
Can I finish my presentation?
Yes, es que it's... sorry. Es que I wasn't sharing it. Yes.
Okay. So where was I? Okay. So secondly, and then we have also another tool, the Lightbox tool. Or
sorry, again. Now I leave you. Es que I'm not. Sorry. Is this okay? No, is this your?
I was just about to explain something. I'm sorry.
Yes. I'm sorry. This is your presentation.
No.
Is this? Yes. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So secondly, the Lightbox tool already available to users on ADA is further developed for in-depth and image analysis, starting from A.B. Warburg's approach of comparative iconography, which focused on the analysis of semantic and visual connections between artworks. The Lightbox will be adapted for the analysis of media art. Oh, now it doesn't continue here anymore. No, he will. So 3D viewing, allowing for experiences of a work of art within the digital realm, as seen here with further development of the collection scope. So please feel invited. Thank you very much. Feel invited to participate as artist or scholar in the ADA archive, creating your own profile for uploading and for cooperation on the further development of tools for documentation, teaching, and research for our field. Thank you very much. And we come already to the next speaker, which is Christina Gardner from Electronica Archive. So you should be already set up since you did it during my presentation.
But let's let Chris. Do you want to let Chris?
Oh, no, sorry.
Christine is already here, so
okay.
Slight change to the schedule. Sorry.
Are you there, Christina?
No.
This?
No. It's Electronica.
I don't know.
No, she's remote. So you
Yes, she's remote.
Just give the screen.
I have to.
I'm here, but I was told that I am the last one, so I was not sure when to
No,
start.
you were the third. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
So, are you ready? Can you go ahead?
Yeah, but that's not my presentation.
Okay, back to the original schedule.
Okay.
All right.
Christina, you have to wait another 5 minutes. Sorry. So
This is not the.
So we go back to the original schedule. So sorry, my fault. So to Wim van der Plas, Bonnie Mitchell, Jean Searleman, and
And
Terry
two,
Wong.
no, number
So
two.
from ISEA Symposium
We
Archives,
have ours. We're all set up.
Bonnie from Bowling Green State University.
Could you
Jen from
open up the
Blackstone
browser
University,
for me?
Terry from
It's in
Santa
the
Cruz
browser.
What do
It's
you
in the
need?
The
background.
browser.
It's miniaturized down at the bottom.
Yeah, we all have.
We are
Yes.
showing the
No,
webpage.
that's not it.
We turned it off.
That's not it. It's. We had a browser at the bottom with all the tabs loaded.
Sorry for
Okay,
this.
What do you want to share?
No,
This, no?
the four of us
See what it is?
No, Terry,
are here and obviously
What
not
do you
around.
mean?
it's a
Janice,
browser
I should
that we
say,
opened during
Searleman
lunch
Yes.
is
Yes.
in California,
and we had all the
and
tabs
she'll
open.
join us. And
We
so the
have to
four
show
of us
these
have
now.
5
No.
minutes altogether,
No, Terry,
of which about
Please,
3 have
take over.
already gone.
no, we are.
And we intended
Seriously?
to
Can
only
you
have a
please-
1 minute
minimize it?
presentation.
This is the thumb.
That we
No,
can
no, I
start.
need to see.
We need to,
And we
all the
really
tabs are our
presented well.
I need to
presentation.
see up here.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
How can I do it?
message.
Oh, okay.
can you move this
Yes.
down
yes.
here? Anywhere,
Well, I don't know how to move
Okay.
this.
just grab it in the black area and move it down
Yes.
on the edge. Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
No,
sorry.
it's closed. Everything
Terry,
closed.
that's not it. Somebody closed it. Sorry, we were all set up and somehow the windows
But
got
it's
closed
closed.
down.
Yeah, okay.
And in the meantime, meet Janice.
Oh,
and
don't worry. I'll
just
try.
Angelus
Yeah,
are around
Let him
there.
go. Okay.
Not really Los Angeles, I believe.
Don't start the timer yet.
We
We were ready to
Terry
go.
is in charge of the timers, so
Yeah.
we're fine.
So we're fine.
No, keep,
Okay.
just focus.
Okay, don't worry, Bunny. There's only 2 chairs. I mean, there's only 2 chairs.
You have a seat.
Thank you. I'll use this. I like this.
Okay.
He's ready. We
Start the
start
timer.
now.
Yeah.
The ISEA Symposium Archives are a mirror of the actual symposium. The structure of the symposium is mirrored in the archive. So we have the academic event as the core. The academic part is the core of the event. They have the workshops and tutorials. And we have the art events like exhibitions, concerts, performances, and screenings. Then you go back to the top of the open webpage. There's more, as you can see from the top menu. There's an about page with news. There is an inventory of other new media art archives. If you miss your own archive in that inventory, send it to me, send a link to me. The idea is that all the archives that are cooperating also have lists of the other archives that will be a beginning of working together. But if I'm not mistaken, ISEA is the only one that did it this far. And then another more important one maybe is the publications page where you find all the proceedings and catalogs of all the symposia and other publications. We have started to build a new archive that's pretty up to date by now, but we still cannot miss the classic archive because the new archive still needs to be checked on mistakes made by students transporting the data from the classic archive to the new archive. So I hand it over, I believe, to Bonnie, who will talk about the new archive. You have 1 minute, Bonnie.
It's not scrolling. Oh, okay. Hi.
Use the microphone.
Okay.
Hi, Jan Searleman and I started the new ISEA archive,
And the idea was to create interconnected data throughout the entire archive. So I'm going to take you on a lightning tour through this archive. So one of the things that, I guess, Terry, you better come click on the things for me because I'm not a PC user. I'm obviously doing something wrong. So one of the things that we have done is created a page for each of the years of the symposium. Go ahead and scroll down. And so it contains all the information, who was involved, the publications down at the bottom. Next one. We also have a lot of information about the contributors, and the contributor page is linked to all of the contributions that these individuals have made over the years. So you can load up your own page and see all of your presentations, artworks, that sort of thing. We have about 10,000 entries so far. Next. And so one of the advantages of the way that we have structured it is that for each of the symposia, we have it divided into presentations, workshops, art events, and all of those are directly linked to the contributors. And we also have information about the venues. And as you know, ISEA is usually all around the city and nearby cities as well. When you go to the presentation page, you can see all of the presentations. And if you click on one of the presentations, well, excuse me, we also have information about workshops. Each of the presentation pages and the workshop pages have additional information. And so I'm gonna, oh, you missed the art events. So
okay.
Go back and click on art events right here. Okay, this is the most exciting part of this archive that I think. Obviously, I'm an artist, right? So when you go over to the artwork pages, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of images, but we're also missing thousands of images. So if you go to your page or somebody that you know and the information is not there, please contact us. And I'm going to pass the mic to Jan Searleman, who's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the new changes that we made.
So first of all, Terry created a comparison chart across all archives, and this helps us identify inconsistencies and address them. We also, when we go to an artwork page on the next tab, we can see that we have, if you scroll down a little bit, there are tools now where we can go to all artworks within an archive. So in ISEA, you can look at all of the artworks within that one archive. On the next tab, you can also see at the bottom of an artwork page. Once we get the work there, you can see all works by all of the artists throughout all of the symposium years. In dealing with names, we needed to clean the database of duplicate names, but we also realized, especially when working with the file archivists, that we needed to address groups of people more effectively. So for example, you can see recent work where we added a group, an artist collective in this case, that created this particular art event. And then the next thing you can see is the details of that artist collective and the people that are associated with it and some of the history of it. And finally, and this is also very exciting and new development, we added the ability to link to other archives. Starting with core 5 archives, we exchanged URLs, and you can see at the bottom of Krista's page that she also has work in HCM, SIGGRAPH, in Ars Electronica, and in Ada. And since the URL is stored there, you can click on one of these icons and it will bring you to the other archive. So you can see her works across all these various archives. Terry, it's your turn now.
Okay, mainly ISEA archives is built based on the publications we have for the year, for over the 27th edition of the symposium. So we build most of our add most of our materials from all the publications we have over the years, and but since last year we started digitalizing the videotapes. We have the VHS videos, so we started a YouTube channel, and okay. So we started a YouTube channel and then start embedding those videos back to our online archives. So we find more images and also some of the missing information from these videos. And we are in the phase of like proofreading some of the information, and also we want your support. So if you would like to know more about ISEA archives and contact us, you could contact us at the ISEA contact information at our About Us page. Thank you very much.
So let's see where we now finally this
So hello, can you already hear me? Ah, yeah. I will share the screen. Okay. Yeah. Hello from my side. It's really a pity not to be in Barcelona today as planned, but I'm happy to participate online at least. I will give you a short glimpse into what the Ars Electronica archive is and what the current projects and challenges are. For those who don't know, Ars Electronica is a cultural institution based in Linz, Austria. It was founded in 1979, and more concrete, the first festival was organized in 1979. Next to the festival that is happening each year in the summer, I want to mention the Ars Electronica Center in Linz as the year-round exhibition place, and the Prix Ars Electronica as a competition for media art with prizes awarded each year since its start. The pre-submissions and winning projects are a big part in our archive. Next to it, there is also documentation material from all the other parts of Ars Electronica, like, for example, interviews with artists and scholars who took part at the festival, or, for example, video journeys through exhibitions at the Ars Electronica Center. 2009, when the new Ars Electronica Center was opened, also the archive got 2 rooms adapted for archive purpose. A phase of collecting and researching started, followed by a phase of digitizing all kinds of different video and audio formats, slides, photos, and other materials. A big treasure in the archive is the video material from the ORF, the Austrian Broadcasting Company, who was co-organizer of the festival for several years. This helped the archive to a huge amount of raw and or edited video material from the early years. Next to the physical archive, a database was built to deal with all the newly digitized materials in a structured way. Besides these files, nowadays, mostly digital-born material finds its way to this database. The database is only accessible internally, but we try to answer all your research questions. We also have an online archive where a huge part of the material is already accessible online for everyone. Here's the URL from the online archive. It was mentioned before in other talks already. The main parts are the pre-archive, the PIC archive, and the print archive. If you don't know it, I want to encourage you to have a look at it, especially to the pre-archive. We also are part of the Connecting Archive project that you will hear more about and have already heard about. So it remains exciting what the next years will bring for our online archive. So we are also trying to connect here to other archives. Our latest project or current project was and is to bring back all festival websites that were located on an old server structure. The websites from 1995, that was the first year the festival had its own website, up to 2008 are now accessible again. The WordPress-based websites from 2009 to 2018 also needed a work-over already and will follow up soon. You can reach the websites now from our new starting webpage for the archive, which is located within the Ars Electronica website. You see the URL here and here. And this new starting page links to the parts of the online archive that I showed you before. Additionally, our press team linked several other still active Ars Electronica pages here that are interesting for making research. Next to the page with the ripped websites I just talked about, that are, for example, a site with an overview of all Future Lab projects, the Ars Electronica YouTube and the Ars Electronica Flickr account. I will end now with a glimpse in our current challenges. A lot of challenges for archives have already been mentioned in other talks. I want to focus here on two that we are currently dealing with. We are still dealing with the old festival websites. A few things concerning the usability have not been solved and worked on yet. Therefore, there will come an update here. And a second challenge is to deal with the huge amount of newly produced content. Especially the year 2020 was an explosion of digital available content as the festival was happening online in this year. The resources that we have for the archive and the needs are currently not fitting anymore, and we have to adapt here. A third and next challenge will be the Connecting Archive project to also connect the Ars Electronica archive to other archives. And that's the last slide where I want to invite you to this year's festival with the title Welcome to Planet B from 7th to 11th of September. Thanks a lot and hope to see you in Linz at some time.
We move to South America to Paula Perisnotto and Fabiana People from the 5 archives. Let's proceed. So Paula.
Yes, can you see my screen? Yes, can you see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can see it.
Okay. Okay. So should be that. Okay. So hello, everyone. So it's such a shame that we can't be there with you in Barcelona. But here from Brazil, we will quickly introduce the work that have been done since 2020 when we presented at ISEA Montreal our intention to organize the File Festival Archive. This work has been developed on 3 fronts so far: the physical archive, the digital archive, and also the interoperability between international analog archives. The physical archive has been designed and produced a customized clause to store and preserve the documents and physical material accumulated over these years. We managed to organize until now the material from 2010 to 2020. It's important to mention that File Festival is a festival that it happens in Brazil, in São Paulo, and it's been happening since the year 2000. And the physical archive and the online archive, it's all about documentation and not about keep the artwork. Yeah. So we managed to do it this last 10 years, and then we will go after from 2000 and to 2010, which is another kind of material. The online archive, it was created using the free software Tainacan, developed by Brazilian universities. And in the 2 last years, 8 individual collections were created, including artwork, participants, events, venue, publications, educational activities, and physical archive. Selections of filters and metadata were configured for each collection. 21 taxonomies containing their respective terms, providing a controlled language of this database. And so far, 1,600 items was inputted. Fabiana will now quickly talk about the implementation of the File Festival archive and how we are planning the next steps. So Fabiana, please.
Hello, everyone. I will quickly share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so as Paula has mentioned, the online archive has 8 collections. All the collections are fully interconnected through the relationship among the metadata, especially structured for each collection. This structure allows a powerful system of search in the database, not only through the metadata itself, but also through the configured filters. As an example, in the events collections, for instance, File Belo Horizonte 2018 event item, you may notice that it's possible to navigate through the metadata by clicking at the catalog event or in the program folder. Also, it's possible to cross-search the search collections and list all the participants or artworks included in this specific event. This is all participants filtered by File Belo Horizonte 2018 event, and at the left, you'll find all the configured filters to refine the search in this collection. There is Anaísa Franco, an artist participant of File Belo Horizonte 2018, when you may see all the information related to her participation in all file events, personal data, events, artworks, and so on, and also navigate through the metadata by clicking on her artwork on chain. The artwork item has also its metadata to navigate through. As said, the archive was structured in an online repository for WordPress Tainacan, where all the metadata, taxonomy, and filters were specially designed for file archive. This is an example of the participant item subscription form, where you can see all the metadata kinds of fields for this specific collection, including the key identifiers field and the URL in other archives for that particular participant. Thinking of interoperability and using Wikidata as an disaggregation metadata, File has already uploaded events information at Wikidata and has a Wikipedia page of its events. We have also started to work with Wikidata to publish initial data of participants' loads in order to generate the key identifier numbers of our database participants. We are still working on the data input of the online repository, as it's a long and continuous work in progress. We invite you all to visit our online archive, and please let us know if you have any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabiana. The second function as a ACM SIGGRAPH History Archives chair, also Bonnie and Jen again.
Welcome. You're probably going to get tired of seeing me. I'll be here for a couple of sessions. Jan Searleman and I co-direct the SIGGRAPH archive. And as you saw earlier with some of the artwork, we have two versions of this. And so we're going to focus a little bit on how we expanded the vision through the teamwork that we've been, the teamwork that builds this archive. And it is quite a large team of people. Oh, no, it's not advancing.
Goes you with the mouse, click, and then with the spacebar. Okay, sorry about that. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about SIGGRAPH. They started in 1974. They're a very cross-disciplinary type of content in this archive. We started with they started with technical papers, but now they've really expanded to include art and VR and emerging technologies, all kinds of different types of content that we had to really think about when we started this new archive. They also have a number of publications, hundreds and hundreds of publications. And I also have started a physical archive of those publications, and we're digitizing them at the moment. It has a lot of communities and committees within SIGGRAPH. And so that's another thing that we had to consider in this archive. And it is very much a work in progress. We have not added a lot of information about these committees and communities, but it is in the plan to do that. We started off as the Art Show Archives, and now we have expanded that to the entire SIGGRAPH history, which is quite huge. Our goals, and our goal really is to get all of that content from 1974 to the present. Our big challenge is finding the information, which is really slowing us down in many cases. And so what we've been doing is digging into people's personal archives. We started with mine and a few others. I'm professed hoarder. And so I had quite an archive. We're scanning those proceedings. We've got lots of earlier websites, but prior to that, we have just a lot of documents that we're accessing. And so for the online information, we are missing a lot of information. We're missing images. But fortunately, what happened is we got an email from the University of Waterloo, and they said, hey, we're redoing our lab. We've got years and years and years of materials from SIGGRAPH. Do you want it? So I drove up there with a van, picked it up. Fortunately, my university gave me an office, and I have some student workers. And so we are now doing a physical archive as well. And Jan's going to talk about the interns and volunteers.
So this archive would not be at all possible without the many dedicated students, interns, and volunteers working on our content management, on graphic design, and programming tasks. And we're in different countries and different time zones. So we do it by, first of all, having a meeting every Friday. In the next slide, Bonnie. And on Zoom, here the groups meet in smaller groups, and we talk about what progress we've made. We discuss problems, how we solve them, and then what tasks we're going to work on as well. Bonnie and I also meet throughout the week. Go back, Donnie, and go back to the previous slide. Okay, and you can see we use some tools such as Trello to keep track of things, and also extensive use of Google Drive, shared drives, and spreadsheets. Now I'm ready for the next slide. Another essential resource are the computer graphics pioneers. We pioneers have been working in computer graphics for decades. It's especially important to fill in some of the early years here. And I especially want to thank Mary Witten for helping to secure funding to pay some of those students, and for Pete Segal for filling in a lot of the gaps. Next slide. When we went beyond the art show, we had to include all of the SIGGRAPH North America conferences and SIGGRAPH Asia conferences. Next slide. We also look at the additional things. So Yuichiro Kawaguchi not only has extensive artworks in there, but he also taught courses. He got awards. He did animations. In looking at contributors by type. On the next slide, you can see the art papers chairs such as Everardo Reyes, but we also had to include things like animation directors. On our next slide, the many experiences in SIGGRAPH include things like the Animation Festival and Electronic Theater, emerging technologies, and so on. We added all that. In learning, we added panels and courses and etc. We also needed to add awards, such as the Distinguished Artist Award. And in the next slide, the fun part of attending conferences, sometimes bringing back memories, are collectibles such as hats and t-shirts and pins that we have added to our archives. So this is a snapshot of what we have. You can see we've filled in a lot of good artworks here, but we have a long way to go and a lot of work to go to complete this archive. So thank you, and please visit our archive and get in touch with us if you have some questions, comments, or maybe you have one of those pins that we're missing. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you very much, Bonnie and Jen. And of course, we are not tired of Bonnie because she's really the heart in this initiative and the spirited sector, I would say, the passionate heart. And beside women, of course. And so I'm happy to continue this session with her in a few minutes when we talk on the very important issue and how such a network of archives should look like on a global scale. We will report a little bit what we have done already, what we envision, and we want to discuss with you how this should look like in terms of what are the needs for our field. So, and make sure that afterwards you come in time to the opening ceremony. So come back in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
We have more coffee, so you're not shaking already. Yeah, and you might be tired of sitting around. We have an interactive session coming up where we want to hear your voice. It will be an interactive dialogue, a roundtable.
But they are not like that great. So no. It's a friend. Something means the mixture of the culture. Well, it's not as Italian, but it's close. You can identify many words that are.
This was the paper that was written. And you can see that this, okay, there's two videos.
Okay.
So after Oliver gets done, could you start
After the
Alexa's video after he gets done? So get those two videos ready to go.
Is this?
Yep, number 6.
There are 2.
Yep. Go ahead and start the 2 videos in the background.
But now, or you want to see first the?
Well, no, you can start them later if you want, but I think if you just started them, then you could switch over to them, right?
This, number
Yep,
52.
number 6. Okay, stop it from playing
Okay.
and back it up just a little to the beginning.
Okay.
She's getting the video ready.
And then now the
other video.
This. But I think
No, that's a PowerPoint. Please start the video.
This is a video, eh?
Oh, that is. Okay, go ahead and stop it. Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead and stop it.
One moment.
And actually addressing how this connection would be viewed and interacted with by users.
Go ahead and just put it at
And
the
now
beginning.
the presentation.
Yep, Oliver will start us off.
Shall I call him in now?
Yep, thank you.
And I can just start recording.
So to jump over, I just do Alt Tab. Is that true?
To when we went to
Alt Tab.
Alt Tab, yes.
Okay.
And you go still marking the tab and you choose where you
Where's the two videos?
This is one and this is the other. And if not, you have here.
How come they're called the same thing?
The same thing.
Oh, that's kind of weird, huh?
I come and I put it if you want.
Okay.
Don't worry. This is your presentation.
Yep. And I needed Alexa first, because that's the thing. Let's see if that's it.
Okay.
We don't know.
I don't know because I can see the name. Don't worry.
Hello.
This is the first. Yep. This is the first. Okay.
So if you don't mind sticking around, get his slides up right there.
Okay, thank you everybody for waiting. I'm still learning from the organizers, so we change things here. But we're going back now to this idea, which I want to introduce to you of connecting archives and how this should help our field, and that's why we need your feedback and also on the requirements, how you envision basically the perfect archive. I don't. It's not clear if we can, how much of that we can realize, how much. So, but we're really looking forward for your feedback on that. So let me start with 5 to 6 minutes, very short, going back briefly into the history of archiving. So documentation archives, and building archives, or as you probably know, was already started in the late 90s. So archive of digital art, Medienkunstnetz in Germany, Longrois Foundation in Canada, Ghana, European Union, Netzspannung, etc. They started in the late 90s, and at that time, the big problem was that there was no funding. So it was a project here, 2 years funding, a project there, another 3 years funding, and then no more money. And so a number of these archives, which were around at that time, they don't exist anymore, or they exist in a frozen state, say, of 2003, and they are not anymore usable for scientific purposes. So in Banff, at the beginning of this Media Art History Conference series, which I was organizing at that time and still helped with the board, we had in 2005 the very first meeting on, there were also other meetings before, but there was the idea to bring together the field and to see what other archives are doing, and if we can have some common interests, and if we can create something together. But it was at a very early time, and I think it was around 2008 or 9 that Roger Molina from Leonardo came up with the idea, why not copying the idea of what astronomers have, so the virtual observatory, since he's also an astronomer, for digital art, or for the documentation of digital art. They have the system, this virtual observatory, that I think 12 or 14 nations at that time paid in a common fund, and so where all the connected archives, but connected observatories could do research on the celestial data. So they were sharing the material, and basically it's a little bit the same what we also could develop for our field, but of course our funding structures, they are not as advanced like in astronomy. So but based on this idea, or maybe influence on that idea, we in 2011 at the Media Histories Conference in Liverpool started the Liverpool Declaration, where this also was pressed in words, and so 600 scholars and museum people also signed this declaration so far. And one point was, of course, better international funding structures, like in astronomy or like the natural sciences and so on. And mostly the interoperability of archives that was envisioned at that time. So, and as you know, these archives are totally important, and the last session was just a very brief overview on the archives which are part of this initiative at the moment, but we hope to open it up, that there are more archives can join or can use our ideas or can add to that at a later point. But as you know, these archives are the foundation not only for research, also for teaching, but also for museums, so that they know what is all out there, which kind of technology is used. If they have the idea and the intention to start their own collection, then they know what they need to do. And so we
hit space.
Yeah, so this was the picture for the Media Histories Conference series. Here are some of the names of who signed the Liverpool Declaration I just mentioned. And so what we also need is a kind of a list, and also in the archive, in these archives where we have where we enlist all these case studies which are done already. So to preserve the different genres, so like mixed virtual art, telematic art, like interactive art, internet art, glitch art, etc. Since all these studies, they're all out there, and it's more a question of how to connect all those. And then, of course, the Saurus work is very important, and this will be also, as you will see in a little bit, a crucial point of our archives and how to bring these together through the Saurus or through certain keywords. But we will get back to this later on. So, so one, and as I said earlier, the archives are the foundation of museums who would like to start a collection, but still this work is this challenge is way too big for individual institutions like one museum or so. So in Germany we started an initiative where from the 700 museums we have, 5% should participate, like 35 museums, build a network supported by the federal government, and then raise this problem from individual museum to a larger network, where we then can deal with the issue of preserving, since it's way too complex for just one individual institution. And so now we have basically two things which we want to. Yeah, and I also want to mention that, of course, in the recent history, Wim van der Plas and Bonnie Mitchell and colleagues also did a lot of for developing this whole service for the field, and through the summits, women South Africa, in Korea, in Canada, on a remote, and now here, and so as it will be just our hope to fulfill the Liverpool Declaration. And so some of the first steps have been done by Bonnie and her team, and I think she will take over now.
Thank you. Great, Oliver. Yes, Oliver got this initiative started, and we've built onto it. And so one of the things that we do as part of building these archives, SIGGRAPH and ISEA, is that we get students involved. And we feel as though it's very important for them to learn the history of media art, but also to get involved with creating these archives that really are kind of bringing that history and making it a living entity today. And so I have a video from 2 of the students that have really been transformative. And so I'm gonna see if I can jump over there to it. Oh, here she comes to the rescue. Is that it? And so let me tell you a little bit about these students. First of all, we hired them on as with a little student grant that we had. And it turns out that they were both brilliant. Okay, one of them is from Mexico and one of them is from Ohio, where I live. Just to tell you how brilliant they are, typically the interns, I tell them what to do. These interns were telling me what needed to be done and doing it.
I have also these.
Isn't that great to have students like that? Yeah. And so, and just to kind of tell you again how brilliant they are, one of them, the one from Mexico, Louise Wilson, graduated immediately as an undergraduate, got hired at Microsoft. And the female, she's still, her name's Alexa Mahajan, and she is still in school, and she just got hired at Pixar. This is her first week at work. So she's working there this summer, and she's developing software tools for artists and for the animators. So I asked them to put together a video talking about their role and what they're doing in regards to the initiative that Oliver was talking about, connecting archives. Now, I will have to preface this with one thing before we start the video, is it started with meetings with Ada and with Ars Electronica, and then File Festival joined in, and the File Festival folks were creating a brand new archive. So we worked with them very closely to get our taxonomies in alignment, and their programmer, Dalton Martins, came up with all kinds of ideas about how we might approach this problem technically. These two students took off with it and started doing brilliant things. So we're going to watch their videos.
Hello, my name is Alexa Mahajan, and I'm a programmer for the SIGGRAPH History Archives. My contributions towards this archive connection project have been focused mainly on user interface development and actually addressing how this connection would be viewed and interacted with by users of our archives. So I began by designing a means for connection data to be input into our archives database and subsequently displayed on the front end of the site through icons. So for example, as you scroll down to the bottom of a person's profile page, such as with our example here of Krista Summer, a series of other archives icons can be seen. When a person has an entry in another archive, the appropriate icon for that archive will appear and link to the corresponding web page within that other archive. So here, with the case of Krista, she can also be found in the ISEA, Ars Electronica, and Ada archives, as indicated by the icons that appear on her profile page. So if we click on one of these icons, we will be taken to Krista's page in that other archive. So for example, we can view her profile page in ISEA. The goal of this project is for the connection to be bidirectional. So if we scroll down to the bottom of Krista's profile page here in ISEA, once again, we will see those same archive connection icons appear. In this case, she now has a SIGGRAPH history icon instead of the ISEA icon. And if we click on it, it will take us back to that original profile page we were just on in the SIGGRAPH History Archives. Looking to the back end of the site, we can see what this connection looks like from an entry standpoint. Our goal was to establish this connection between archives without having to manually enter each connection. Thus, the system is set up so that these connections will automatically be displayed on the front end of the site as data fields are dynamically populated within our database using our data comparison process, as we will be discussing in greater detail shortly. Each archive has a URL field where our archive connection data can be input, as seen here. And when a field contains a URL, the profile page template code will display the appropriate archive icon. Another aspect of this project was developing an application to be used by the involved archives to actually compare data exports and identify the connections that could be made. We realized that this would play a crucial role in the success of our project, as it revealed a need for sanitization of our databases and preliminary restructuring work to achieve the best results and establish consistency across exports. So I contributed to this process in developing the front-end interface for our application using Python. The interface allows users to choose two archives and run a comparison between their database exports. So as seen in this demonstration, it also integrates appropriate error handling to ensure users can accurately execute the comparison between databases. The comparison code run by this interface was developed by our programmer, Louise Wilson, who will now be discussing the process of actually exporting and comparing data across our archives to establish these connections.
Hi, my name is Louise Wilson, and I am one of the programmers for the SIGGRAPH Archive. Not able to present live, so I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. So, connecting archives. It's quite a challenge, mainly because every archive has their own data and their own way of representing that data, making it hard for non-humans to identify which info is actually the same between two or more data sources. The solution involves having a central point of reference every involved archive knows about. That way, the sites can easily identify which pieces of information are the same and link to others, like you were shown previously. The difficult part is getting to that point, so let's see that in more detail. First, we have data sanitization. This is something that every archive should aspire to do continuously to keep their information consistent. A very prevalent issue with SIGGRAPH, for example, was duplicate entries. For that, what we tried first was developing a script that analyzed an export of data, specifically people, against itself. This script uses fuzzy string matching algorithms. These algorithms don't do a one-on-one comparison between texts, but instead give you a percentage of how close the two strings are. This helps us indicate issues like typos, missing or extra names, nicknames, and so on. If we don't have our data claims, comparing our input to external archives becomes much more difficult. So we really want to make sure we sanitize our data before attempting anything else. Other options we've started to consider are software like OpenRefine, which is a very straightforward and fast way to compare data, with some options for different algorithms. This is good as it's something we don't have to maintain ourselves. Now that our data is clean, it's time for the central point of reference I mentioned previously. This should serve as the only source of truth.
Sorry, I need to repeat it. Sorry.
It didn't get shared with the remote people, and we have quite a few remote participants, so I'm so sorry. I will explain to the people remotely that the video, unfortunately,
Hi, my name is Louise Wilson.
You may not have seen it, but you'll see it now. So they didn't share it.
Wilson, and I am one of the programmers for the SIGGRAPH Archive. I'm not able to present live, so I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. So, connecting archives. It's quite a challenge, mainly because every archive has their own data and their own way of representing said data, making it hard for non-humans to identify which info is actually the same between two or more data sources. The solution involves having a central point of reference every involved archive knows about. That way, the sites can easily identify which pieces of information are the same and link to others, like you were shown previously. The difficult part is getting to that point, so let's see that in more detail. First, we have data sanitization. This is something that every archive should aspire to do continuously to keep their information consistent. A very prevalent issue with SIGGRAPH, for example, was duplicate entries. For that, what we tried first was developing a script that analyzed an export of data, specifically people, against itself. This script uses fuzzy string matching algorithms. These algorithms don't do a one-on-one comparison between texts, but instead give you a percentage of how close the two strings are. This helps us indicate issues like typos, missing or extra names, nicknames, and so on. If we don't have our data clean, comparing our info to external archives becomes much more difficult. So we really want to make sure we sanitize our data before attempting anything else. Other options to start to consider are software like OpenRefine, which is a very straightforward and fast way to compare data, with some options for different algorithms. This is good as it's something we don't have to maintain ourselves. Now that our data is clean, it's time for that central point of reference I mentioned previously. This should serve as the only source of truth for our information, and this is how data between archives will be linked. Luckily, such thing exists, and it's called Wikidata. It's a free and open knowledge base that is actively used by other projects, including Wikipedia. One can add items into Wikidata or even edit existing ones. Every item in Wikidata has a QID, a unique identifier. And by syncing our archives' data with Wikidata items QID, Archive A could know for sure if an item they have is the same as one in Archive B. Of course, syncing an archive's data into Wikidata is another big challenge. Like with the data duplicate problem, there is a lot of comparisons to be done, and many of the same issues we presented earlier that would make any non-human struggle to find matches will come up again. Fortunately, there are online tools that will aid us in this journey, including a Wikidata API. Once archives have QIDs in their items, each archive should share their items page URL with other archives. This could be easily done with an API. Let's say Archive A has person John Doe and already linked it to Wikidata. So it has a QID equal to, let's say, Q20. Archive B also did their part of the job, so they have John Doe in their database as well, with a Q20 QID. Now, Archive A wants to see if Archive B also has an entry for John Doe. A only needs to ask B if they have a Q20 in their database, and if they do, they should return the URL to the corresponding page archive. With this URL, Archive A can display a pretty button that takes you to the same item in Archive B.
So I want to thank our students for paving the way to actually making this happen. And now Oliver's going to lead us through a roundtable discussion.
With you together, Bonnie, don't escape. so yeah, as you just heard, so every archive is different, and since we have festival archives like ISEA, Electronica file, and then also scientific archives like ADA, Media ArtNet, and so on, so it's not so easy. It's actually a very big challenge to make a connection among them, and so so there. And of course, the general idea, and as you also just have heard partly, is that we see what is in the other archives, so that to fill then this data into analytic tools for our scientific research. And the question is how much of the data we can use commonly. And I'm very happy that that Bonnie, with her fantastic students, just presented this as a kind of a first, it's a kind of a breakthrough, a first step on a bridge, or building of a bridge, and it's at that point on artist names, but we can also think of artworks, connecting through artworks, connecting through keywords, themes, etc. So the question is then, how big should this bridge be? And I have questions for you. This would be the first question: how big should be this bridge? What information should the connected archives offer to scholars, students, museums, galleries, and others? What would be your main interest in that? How does this initiative relate to your own interests in archiving? And yeah, also how can we involve museums in that? Anybody who would like to start in that? Feedback already on that.
I'm going to answer partially a little piece of his question. And that is that we identified people and art events. So we know that we have to take a little step at a time, because most of the archives out there have some kind of information about people, right? And so that's our step one. And step two, after we get that done, art events. And an art event can be an artwork in an exhibition, or it could be a performance, that sort of thing, because artworks, as opposed to papers, get presented at a number of different exhibitions, right? So I'd like to open it up to you. Some more comments? Yes.
I'm an artist, and I'm going to present tomorrow my art database. And when I started to make database, I wanted to make database in the future. But it turns out that I had to first do the past, because all artists, media artists, are working in future, not the past. So when you make it, it will be excellent material for anthropology, for sociology, and all other things. So it's a good way for funding. It's like a observatory.
It is a good way for funding, yes. Although we don't have any funding. Yes. Oliver does, not me. Yeah. Other comments?
Wow, this is amazing, amazing work, so much work. Yes, I love the idea of you have this Wikidata, and it's like a reference point where multiple platforms can draw similar, exactly the same set of information, and then can compare it. I think that's just really brilliant. I have a thought about, so who has access to Wikidata? Can the public, for example, edit Wikidata? Can you crowdsource people to edit? And then if you do, then how do you maintain the quality of it, of course? But I just had a thought about that.
Surprisingly, we were able to go in there and edit file festivals, Wikidata entries without any permissions or anything.
So anybody can.
You just need to get an account, and yeah, like it was fairly easy. And so I'm kind of curious about maintaining quality. You're right. Some other comments? There's a comment over here.
So I really think that this is brilliant. That all the work that you're doing here is really cool. The bridging the gap, I think, is between different archives is really incredible and going to lead to a lot new information to be able to be spread. I'm curious what you see as what individual components these archives keep when they start harmonizing the information between each other. What do they keep for themselves that's individual? Do they have individual pieces of information that other archives don't have? Or at one point, do you see all of this kind of spreading into the same kind of information across these different platforms? And at that point, do you see any kind of centralization beginning to happen? Or is it going to still be between these different archives?
That is a brilliant question, actually. On Tuesday, there's a number of institutional presentations and also a long paper at, I believe, 12:40 on Tuesday. And it's on connecting archives, and it's much more detailed than what we went into here. And we talk about the different approaches that we considered, decentralized systems, centralized systems, and what we decided at a meeting with Oliver, actually, and a number of other archives, is that we wanted to maintain our own autonomy, but yet be able to connect to each other. So we did consider absorbing content all into this master archive, but we decided that just wasn't going to work. You know, we want our own flavor.
Yeah, I couldn't say this better. Our own flavor is always great. So yeah, it's a strategic question also, since you want to also make sure that in the future you also have funding for your own. It's not your own archive, but the institution which you represent. And then, of course, as we heard earlier, there are also different purposes. So we have the festival archive, which should document evidently the Fire Festival or the Electronica Festival. And those artists which we never presented, then normally they cannot be in this archive. Whereas when we have these, whereas you have also these other scientific archives, they can do whatever they want basically, or they have also their own rules. So like in our case, for example, we have at least 5 exhibitions and or 5 articles on the artist, and then the person is automatically qualified. But it's all everywhere different. And so, but the question is really how common do we make this common ground? And so it's not the idea, it's not to make a super archive in the end, which absorbs everything and nothing else. But since also in these individual archives, there's a lot of development and there's a lot of individual questions in there. But still, it is very good to have some common ground, to starting ground also for certain research questions, and then you can go deeper into the specific archive or go beyond the archive. Well,
That was a very good question. Maybe building on that, I was just wondering now, how is your relation with the artists that are being archived, and how you agree on these different flavors to different institutions together with the artists, or if this is a curation that it's just yours, or how this own flavor is decided or has a participatory way of being dialogued with the artists themselves. So how this curation of these flavors happen in relation with the artists?
Over. And then I'll get a comment on that.
Difficult to answer, since archivists are also a little bit dry people sometimes, and it's not always a very emotional sort of relationship. But we, for example, in ADA, we have the tool or a strategy or a common where we do a big blast on an artist. If an artist puts in all his complete effort into ADA. So like Jeffrey Shaw has 130 artworks in there, and so he got a blast, and then we put it on a number of mailing lists and social media reaching more than 100,000 people and so on, which gives extra popularity for the artist and knows, but these are very prominent artists already, but they're also newcomers who already fulfill the criteria, and this is a kind of incentive for them to put more data into the archive. So, but this is more a strategy of us, and of course, then we offer this sometimes to certain artists we find also interesting, or the board finds interesting. But I don't know exactly what you envision, for example, how this relationship between archive and artists could be even deeper or more flavored, or.
I'll tell you with ISEA and SIGGRAPH, these are event-based, and so is File Festival. So we document the events and the people involved in those events. And if there are artists in this room, you probably, artists that are presenting here at ISEA, you probably had to fill out a permission form, a legal permission form, to include your work in the archives. So that's our relationship. But then I have to say that Wim van der Plas has been creating relationships with the artists personally, emailing them, saying, hey, we're missing this image, and artists have been contacting him and telling him that, oh, wait, you've got that wrong, right? So could you change this? And so I'm too busy programming. He's the guy that's talking to the real people. So did you want to say more about that, Mim? How your relationship with the artists? No? Okay, Terry has some questions from the chat.
Maybe I'll open that up from here.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And I think, while he's doing this.
Yeah. Okay.
I think today was a really awesome experience in that we saw that each of those archives that were presented had a different flavor, right? And their relationship to the artist, sometimes their archive was based on a single artist. Sometimes it was the individual person archiving their own work. So that relationship differs. And so the only thing that we want to do in regards to connecting archives is allow those people to have their own relationships with the artists and link to them, just like a Google search would, you know, get you to all of the articles written about an artist, right? And so we're just trying to make the path a little easier.
Okay. I think there's a question. I think one need to distinguish format of art as mentioned, yet as well format of SS perhaps curated one and not all curated. Later one being the powerful ones. So what do you think about this? And the other question we have is how can archives better engage with artists as repository of learning? Is this part of the joining up strategy?
That's Oh, he passes it to me. Thanks, Oliver.
Or to anybody in the room would like to answer that.
Yeah, would anybody like to comment on that? This is a group discussion. It's not about us. Cynthia wants to say something.
I think the way the link is established between the artist and the archive is by the papers the artist write about the work.
Absolutely, that's an interesting perspective. Right. And so we would like to connect to archives that have this personal account of their work.
Yeah. So one big difference to traditional archives is where most of the artists or the persons documented they are already dead, is that in media arts archives, thank God they're still alive. And so they use also the archive strategically in a way also to make the career path, and we also use it strategically as archivists to use this mechanism that we get more material to the archive. And we also have online exhibitions, for example, as an on the archive side. So where the artists strategically can also work with the archive.
This is
so it's very intense connection with the artists. And then of course there's a lot of interaction when they don't upload all the material in the main exhibitions and so on. They were involved with our team is connecting with them.
Okay.
And so on.
So maybe I'll just
in the future they also they want to make more exhibitions, so with not only individuals but also on groups and so on, thematic exhibitions and so on. I have also another question for you here in the room as researchers or as artists or who use archives every once in a while. What would be how should what answers should you expect from archives for your own research questions? I don't know, if, for example, somebody is working on climate or so, that, for example, this person might expect to find a lot of material with the keyword climate or nature or weather and so on. And then artists who work also in this field and maybe even trying to define related interfaces, special interfaces artists use to bring this topic better across. I don't know, are there any questions or research you're interested in? Okay.
Well, this triggers the question of learning itself. So I was just thinking, because the previous question, also in your question, was about learning and getting more functionality from the archive. So what if the archive would learn from itself? If it would kind of do data mining and figure out all the different notions and principles and ideas and trails of what have you, and then create a network of affinities between all these different topics and features and so on. So it would do feature detection of ideas, so to speak. And then if this network would kind of pop up from the various databases, then it would be possible to navigate this network and learn from navigation in the network. That would be fantastic, I think.
Thank you very much. It was a great.
About a month ago, I told Peter that we need him on the ISEA archives because this idea is just fabulous. And quite honestly, we're kind of like baking the cake and then we can put the icing on. You know? And so right now we're trying to collect the data and get the functionality, basic functionality, but I really want to go down that path. We really need some machine learning and some AI to analyze the information that's there. And Oliver was talking about the thesaurus, and we've had a lot of meetings about taxonomies and how can we connect these archives in a much more kind of interesting way. You know, we're going with brute function, I don't know, brute approach or something. I don't know what you call it, but well, person to person, you know, we're getting the information about a person, but it could be much more interesting than that. More? It's your turn to talk.
My comment was quite similar. I was thinking of like when you're getting all these amazing all these sorts of information together, you're kind of like being into the field of big data. The question is, has there been any research done related with this, treating this whole substance as a big data and creating something like data visualization efforts? Has there been any work done on that topic?
Have you?
No.
We have a data visualization tab on the top, and Everardo Reyes in Paris did a data visualization of the archive early on, but it was in its preliminary state. And so, you know, I hope that he does more advanced work later on when the archive has more content. So it has definitely been the plan from the beginning, is to get some data visualization artists involved. And wait, Oliver has a comment.
Yeah. So the question of evidently we also have, as also shown earlier, visualization involved. But if you ask for big data, we need millions of files and so on, and this field is not as huge, or the selection or the representation from the festivals we have. It's more like thousands of artists. It's more like thousands and thousands of artworks, but it's not millions, which is good. and so, but it's definitely visualization is very important.
More comments?
A couple of thoughts to share. One has to do with, I'm wondering if you are creating documentation of the process which that you establish in this archive, because with any archive writing, it's about writing history. There's always a biased way of establishing and looking at it, but through documentation, others can look at this history differently. So that's one thought of that. The other one is about when we're talking about the relationship between artists and archives. You know, as artists develop their work over the past decades, it'd be very interesting on that Wikidata, you know, if artists have access, because they're still alive, like you said, right? They're still alive. It'd be interesting for them to go back to look at, say, the artist statement that they wrote about a certain way of representation of whatever, you know, 20 years ago, and write a reflection on how they're looking at today. So as a way of expanding something that's already said and done into something that's live.
Yeah, first question, documentation of documentation is displayed or work, and this will be also a big challenge for the bringing the archives together and this connecting archive process to document and write, so that later participants can also join more easily or find, I don't know, if we can develop some basic standards So it would be, of course, the hope to make it easier for other people, and then where they basically in their own country can ask for funding so that they can join a larger initiative. It's a good argument for funding for support organizations.
All of our code is on GitHub right now, open source, and we're creating these APIs to give away free to any archive that wants to join. But as Louise was talking about, it sounded like a great idea until we started doing it with our own archives, and we realized that the data sanitization problem was pretty critical. And so it wouldn't be like push a button and it happens, you know, so you've got to take a look at your own data and make sure that you've got what it takes to use the API. But we are trying to make it as accessible as possible.
Is there a way when we add an item to the archive to estimate its future cost of preservation? Is that part of
When you say cost, could you define?
Well, for example, you know, if you have just one picture with a small metadata compared to a huge 1 GB video with a lot of metadata, you know, its future cost of storing and, you know, artificial intelligence will not be the same, obviously. So is this part also of the archiving process to try and estimate the financial cost of future handling, financial cost, or even environmental cost? That's a beginner's question.
Well, your question stumps me though, because we have been operating without a budget with the ISEA archive. And, you know, interesting enough, last month we put out a call for volunteers and we got 12 students that immediately signed right up. And that's how we've been operating. We don't get paid. Jen and Wim and Terry and I, it's a passion from the heart. So when you said cost, I wanted to know what exactly you were talking about. Financial cost? Okay, we're really lucky because SIGGRAPH is hosting both of these archives on a very powerful server for free. They give us tech support for free. They're quite excited about what we're doing. So right now we're operating without a budget. You know, I get a little bit of money through grants to hire the students because I don't want them going hungry, right? And so, but we really don't have a budget. Now, Oliver, on the other hand, just got a big grant.
not big enough. So no, but I think this situation is definitely also in the US. It's like in Europe and or in Asia also, where there's museums, they realize that they need the archives so that since they are the containers of the information, and even in a non-public funded sector like the cultural sector in the US, there's simply the need there. And so I think I remember the time when we had also for many years no funding, and it was the same like Bonnie just described, was where we had interns and other to keep this alive, so to say, was the challenge. And but I think from the European Union and also within various countries in Europe, it's understood that they need support, especially for the art schools where the artists, that they don't reinvent the wheel with every new interface they create. If they realize, oh, 20 years ago, the idea was already there, but if they have a long line of all the interface inventions which were done over the last decades, then they can really combine something new from the past. So it's very important for art education, of course, for the museums, and for galleries also, that they and understand what is out there. And if we combine the archives with a network of museums, like as I've shown earlier, what was done in Germany and Austria, then we can also create a better art market for digital art. So where the galleries and also where the collectors don't be afraid of that they buy something which in 2 years they cannot run anymore. Where we can create a kind of maintenance system through the museums, through the technicians which are there in this network. And then when an artwork, and when an artist wants to sell an artwork, he can sell it with a guarantee from a maintenance guarantee from this network. So like you buy a car, very simple comparison, and then you have this, you cannot repair your car yourself, and so you have this kind of a guarantee from this network. This, I mean, it's very simply thought, but we hope that we can develop something in this towards the goal. More questions? I think we have time for one or two more questions.
Right over here.
Yeah. Just a quick question about, I see there's a missing important player in the picture, which is the gallery. So what kind of roles you pictures when you develop the archiving platform? So
I'm sorry, could you?
So
define your question. Go ahead.
So basically, it's how to define the role of the gallery, especially for-profit galleries, play in this role, because this data is so important for them.
There's some comments about the for-profit issue. Yeah, that gets tricky, doesn't it? Because I think once people realize what we have going here, they will want to turn it into a profit generating element. Yeah, and even within SIGGRAPH, that's a bit of a challenge with me, in that I just got an email and it said, oh, this woman, she wasn't going to continue her membership in the organization, but then she saw the archive and she was like, yes, I definitely want access to that. Therefore, I'm going to renew my membership. But wait, she could get this free without a membership, And he said, I didn't tell her that. And so I have a feeling there will be people in the SIGGRAPH organization that will say, wait a minute, we could make money off of that. And I will fight it tooth and nail because we did it for free, to give it to everybody free. And I will stand by that. So.
We are big believers in open source, open access.
Thank you,
Archives for all.
Archives for all. Maybe we should end with that, but we've got Terry. Terry has a comment or two. He wants to talk a little bit about.
Okay. I have a presentation, but I think, okay. I think this sets a very good stage for my presentation. Thank you very much for Bonnie and Oliver for the great roundtable discussion. And actually, I'm going to talk about, I already mentioned this a little bit earlier today. I'm doing a research project for related to connecting archives, forming the global archiving network. And I'm doing a case study for the second summit on new media archiving. So let me see if I could go. Okay. So first, I think for many of you, if you don't know who I am, my name is Terry Wong, and I'm an archivist with ISEA Archives, and I'm also one of the members in the organizing team for the second summit on new media archiving, and I'm a researcher from Simon Fraser University. So, like I said, thank you very much for telling us so much about the background in new media archiving. Thank you, Bonnie and Oliver. So, the challenges we have, the two main one are the technical obsolescence and the documentation and many others. And Oliver talked about the Liverpool Declaration, and it creates a lot of other initiatives in the new media archiving field. and being supported by many other archivists in the field. And now we have the second summit on new media archiving. And this is one way that connecting new media archives around the different parts in the world. And quickly, I'm going to go over my research question. So my first main research question is like, how do the participants of the summit actually shaping the future development of an international research archive infrastructure for new media art? And some other question I want to find out is like, how will we be able to establish an international and sustainable funding structures? Okay, and second question, sub-question is like, how can we establish an international consortium for sharing data? And third question is, what are the various problems and solutions in the emerging global new media archiving network? So I'm taking the case study, and the goal is to identify the status of the network, the archiving network, and to analyze the problems and solutions. Some of them we already talked about, and some of them I think you may have it in your mind and still thinking about. So I think doing a survey would be a great idea to maybe, while you guys are still very fresh with the idea. So the third goal I have is to report the funding back to the community. So I'm aiming to have my research done by the next summit, so I could report it in the next summit. And like I said, so I really need your support for the survey, and I will invite some of you guys to do an interview later. Okay, thank you. So this is the QR code for the survey. Please kindly scan it, and if you haven't done it yet, and help us to complete the survey.
Terry, move that out of the way so they can scan it.
Okay.
Please help Terry with his research.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, please open those was yours, Terry, since it's really a super important question for all of us. Yeah, where to get the money from, and I think the answer, I don't have the answer for that. We will also see it, but it's not so much through these research foundations like the National Science Foundation, George Washington, ESC, or Austria, etc. It's more by the ministries. I think not the cultural ministries, the science ministries in the different countries, to support infrastructure for the humanities and for the arts. And if we, based on your survey, can write a letter to 10 different ministries, signed by all these people from the Liverpool Declaration and from those people we had on this meetings here so far in the last few years, so it would be a very powerful address. And if we then show, look, in astronomy, they have such thing where you also need this for the humanities, for the art research, then okay, then something may come out of it. So thank you very much for participating. It was a joy to discuss, and I think we have still time to run to the opening ceremony. Who would like to go there? And otherwise, you again tomorrow at
10 a.m. Just 10 a.m. See you in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you.